Hey everyone, Donna Downey here, and I'm super excited for my new workshop, 10 to the 4th, or 10 by 10 canvases in 10 days. But the real exciting part is that I'm encouraging you, I'm walking you through the process of building artwork in series. And the idea of that is bigger than just working in onesies, like we've all probably done. I saw myself included in that because we get so narrow-minded into what we're doing that it has to be the best, and sometimes working in multiples can give you that push you need to experiment, because if you already loved it once, you're going to love it times 10, and it's just going to grow, and you're going to take risks, and it's just going to be a crazy, wonderful experience. So I am really excited about what I created in this workshop, not only because I, number one, chose a color palette that I don't normally do, but number two, it evolved organically, and I'm really hoping that as you work through it, it starts to take twists and turns that resonate with you. It's just a really, really important, I would say, part of the creative experience to work in series, to include that component. Now, I don't expect for you to stop working the way you do making onesie twosies, because there's still some validity to that too. But there is something really just greater than the sum of its parts, really, to working in a series. So not only will this video just be instructional, there's also a really cool handout about discussing how you can work in a series and what the benefits are and what are some tips and some tricks to get you through working in a series. Also going through signing, numbering, all of those things are really important. And then finally just sealing your work so that you know it'll substantiate. Now, maybe not all of you are interested in selling your work, and that's fine. But for those of you that have just the slightest bit of inkling to going to the next step and selling your work, this workshop is totally going to push you in that right direction and explain to you why working in a series is so much more beneficial for an artist who's trying to get their work out there. So I am really excited about this. I'm just going to go into right now a couple of the materials, show you some stuff we're going to be working with, explain the method to my madness, but I'm really excited to get started with this with you.
All right, so let's talk supplies. What kind of supplies are you going to need? Now, I stayed true to a very specific color palette, and if you are going along with what I'm doing, well then certainly this is exactly what you're going to need. But feel free to change it up. If you don't want to do this color palette, totally understandable. Or if you don't want to stay with the theme I've chosen, well, you're just going to have to make those changes and totally fly by the seat of your pants, and I absolutely encourage that. But let me just go through what I used in keeping the supplies the same so that I could create that cohesiveness throughout the lessons. I really chose to keep my supplies quite simple so that my decision making really was like a no-brainer. So what I did is I've decided up front what it is I wanted to use, and then I kind of just attacked every canvas with the same supplies in mind. So the first thing I had to decide was color. So I chose, of course, teal, but teal, Payne's gray, yellow ochre, and I've got these grays here. Now, these are fluid acrylics, which is usually what I like to work in, but they don't make fluid acrylic paint in gray, so I had to use some heavy-bodied. And you do not need 5 grays, but when I went into my stash, I chose gray paint, and I only had the neutral gray kind of section. So I just chose anything from a neutral 8, which is an N8, to an N3, and you can see how they vary in intensity and value. Neutral 5, N5, that's going to be your middle grade. It's not quite black, it's not quite white, it's right in the middle. And as you go higher in number, you get lighter, and as you go lower in number, you get darker. So not that I used them all equally, but I did have them out each time. So I was able to kind of modify as I was going. So I had those colors in my palette, but it doesn't mean I use them all the time. And then of course gesso. Now I use gesso as I would use white acrylic paint. Could you use white paint? Sure. But look at the size bottle of gesso that I buy as compared to something like my Payne's gray. I buy gesso in such a large quantity that it just makes sense to use it as white paint. And then what I did is I actually threw in some raw umber at the end, mostly. For all of my pieces, that's the element that tied it all together. Glazing in this raw umber. Again, do you have to do it in raw umber? Absolutely not. But I find it has that nice right of grunginess. So really tying all of this palette together was that raw umber in the end. All right, well then, I also had these collage components. Now, I used numbers as my theme. I just happen to have stickers and cards and metal plates and metal numbers. I mean, I think I collect numbers, and I had it in a stash, so I thought, why not use that? Also to the point that I love tags, and not everything was numbered. Like I had these right here, which is just a script. I did use some pieces of book text, tissue papers and things like that, but I tried to keep the cohesive theme of numbers and a bit of a collage on each one of the canvases, so that even though they might be different, they all kind of had that element running through them, tying them together. Great way to use up your stash too. A lot of times if we have letter stickers, we have just the numbers left. So great way to tie those in. And of course canvas, that's silly not to mention that, but I used all 10 by 10 canvases. I chose to use the 1.5, I'll make a mess here, the 1.5 inch wrap, the deeper spine. I made the side of the artwork part of the artwork itself, so you can choose to use anything you want. You can even do this in a journal. It doesn't have to actually be a series of canvases, but I did like the 10 by 10, made it functional and easy to do in a day, and it also gave me this nice surface to kind of wrap the design around. Fun to drip stuff over. I have a palette pad. This is how I like to use my paints. I like to put them in a pad and then be able to tear it off when I'm done. And I call this Old Faithful here. This brush is it's a Simply Simmons 1-inch flat brush. I have had it for 2.5 years. It is still going strong. It is every remnant of every paint color I've ever used on the handle, but it's my Old Faithful. Really durable brushes, the Simply Simmons. I can't recommend those enough. And they're super affordable. Palette knife, just a cheapy little palette knife. I used the regular gel medium. This is kind of the consistency of Vaseline, and I used that to adhere down all of my collage elements. I put it under and over, but it's a really good adhesive. Does it have to be this? No, but I just find that this works the best. And then I did use some fluid matte medium for my tissue. It's the same product, only it's a little bit thinner. So if you have something like a tissue paper, it keeps it without it buckling too much. And then the glazing liquid is what I use with that raw umber to create that cohesive glaze over the top to tie it all together. So like I said, oh, baby wipes. You need tons of those. I would say have 2 packs at the ready because I glaze and I use tons of baby wipes. So that said, I want you to first, before you enter into this, kind of think about the supplies you have, compile that, and actually keep them out on your table. So every day when you come to make the next new canvas, you actually are ready to go. I did not clean my paper underneath my canvases. I just kind of kept going. I didn't really clean up after myself outside of maybe rinsing off my brushes and just pushing everything to the side. But it's just a nice way to start into working like this. You kind of have your mind all cleared of what you're going to do. You're just letting the intuitive process just kind of grab you as you go along. I don't expect your canvases to look exactly like mine. You can only make what kind of comes out of you. I don't care if they look exactly like mine. I want them to look exactly like you in the end, and if you feel more comfortable following my methods, that's fine. But really I challenge you to really stretch yourself with this class and kind of find your own little mojo along the way. Alright, I think that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at Donna@DonnaDowney.com. Otherwise, let's get started to paint.